The Chicago White Sox lost the finale and lost the series to the Seattle Mariners. Lance Lynn went 7 innings on Sunday, and he tied a strikeout record. Yes, Lance Lynn, but the White Sox still lost. They just can't put everything together all at once. Pedro Grifol sounded off on lineup construction and wants you to take your complaints to Jerry. Delusion is starting to finally set in, I think. Sox are 11 games under 500 and welcome the Texas Rangers to town for a 3-game series starting on Monday.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTV. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Chicago White Sox take on the Texas Rangers on Monday on the South Side. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. State of the Sox. They are now 31-42, still just 5.5 games back in the AL Central. Sunday, it was a tough one, 5-1. We're going to get through all of the details of that crazy game on Sunday. What a job by Lance Lynn. All of the stuff that happened over the weekend. Probably go through Sunday first. But look, White Sox are now 8-7 in the month of June. Still got about halfway to go. Some big series coming up. White Sox have lost 3 series in a row now. They come home to face the first place 44-27 Texas Rangers, led by Bruce Bochy. It was the Lance Lynn show, though, on Sunday. He needed to eat some innings. We had a lot of bullpen arms used in this Seattle series. Last time we saw Lance Lynn, it didn't go very well, especially early in LA. And that has been the problem for Lance Lynn. He gets dominated early on. First couple innings seems to settle down a little bit. But with this White Sox team and the lack of consistent offense, you just can't put this team in a hole. So he showed up, man. He absolutely showed up. 8 innings with success. His line on Sunday, 7 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, which they really shouldn't have been tacked onto him. What Reynaldo Lopez did, Lynn shouldn't have to suffer, but 3 earned runs on the official line, 2 walks, 16 strikeouts for Lance Lynn. His ERA now, though, is still 6.51. Sox right-hander Lance Lynn struck out 16 batters over 7 innings on Sunday in a 5-1 loss to the Mariners, tying a franchise record held since 1954. Lynn tied a Sox record set by Jack Harshman, who struck out 16 at Boston on July 25th, 1954. It was the most strikeouts by a Sox pitcher since Chris Sale had 15 on August 16th, 2015. Against the Chicago Cubs. I remember that game because I was with some Cub fans at that time. Boy, Reynaldo Lopez walked 2 and gave up a 3-run triple to Jared Kelenic, making it 5-1. Lynn was charged with 3 runs. Sox offense really nowhere to be found. And again, you get an amazing outing by Lance Lynn. Who would have thought that A guy we've been screaming about, DFA Lance Lynn, get this guy off the team. I don't know if this is something that he's going to be able to put even close to this moving forward, if he can put another outing like this together. But he did it on Sunday, and it would have been nice for the offense to kind of show up, and the bullpen. Reynaldo Lopez, stop throwing middle stuff and just knee-high fastballs. But anyway, offense, 1 run, 6 hits. Nobody had a multi-hit game. Benintendi had the lone RBI. Sox were 2 for 5 with runners in scoring position. For the series, Sox were 5 for 27 with runners in scoring position in Seattle. Our Chicago White Sox just unable to put everything together at once. And if they do, it's not sustainable for very long. A couple games here, maybe 2-3 games in a row. And the stretches of unlikely heroes. How about it? Some of the names, heroes that I know I didn't anticipate this coming into the season. Jake Berger, we're going to talk about him. Romy Gonzalez had his moments. How Romy goes, the team goes, right? Zach Remillard, wow, what a weekend he had. He'll never forget that. Out of the bullpen, guys like Middleton, Santos, Joe Kelly, guys you just didn't anticipate. Gavin Sheets has had moments too. And I think that's what I have to finally get used to here, which is confusing, and it's difficult to do. The fact that the players that we thought would lead the Chicago White Sox on a consistent basis, this core group that we thought when playing together and healthy, if they could stay healthy, they were going to carry this team to success for many, many years. I just don't think it's going to happen. I do not believe the guys like Anderson and Moncada and Robert and Jimenez, even Vaughn. I didn't think he was going to carry this team, but kind of disappointing with what he's been able to do, especially from the power standpoint and some of the at-bats. But you got guys like, wow, thank goodness for Zach Remillard this past weekend and Jake Berger. What a story he has been this year. It's very odd, and I've been denying that's how the way things are going to go. But I think I just have to lean in and say these guys that have been fighting for roster spots and then finally have these roster spots, that's what we're going to hold on to. And that's where the success is going to come from offensively. Prior to the game, this was great. Pedro Grifol had a comment on Jake Berger batting 8th on Sunday. This is what Grifol said. I'm going to put the lineup out there I think is going to help us win. I don't have to answer to those people who don't like the lineup. He's in the lineup. He's going to get 4 at-bats, help us win. Other than that, they can talk to Jerry. Berger did not get 4 at-bats on Sunday, and Pedro Grifol is clueless if he thinks anybody is going to have the opportunity to ask Jerry Reinsdorf any questions, let alone expect answers, especially not about the lineup. I think some delusion is finally getting to Pedro Grifol here. I don't think he realized what kind of organization he got himself into. Berger, though, he had a rough series, 1 for 11 in the series with 7 strikeouts. Luis Robert Jr., and there were others, but Robert Jr., man, 2 for 14 in the series, 8 strikeouts. Zach Remillard, it was all about him on Saturday, and TA moving out of the leadoff spot. Remember that big thing I went on about Grifol saying it hadn't even crossed his mind to take Tim Anderson out of the leadoff spot. That was in LA, and just a few games later, Tim Anderson dropped to number 2. Now, who is this Zach Remillard? He was selected by the White Sox in the 10th round of the 2016 MLB draft out of Coastal Carolina University. Made his debut on Saturday after spending nearly 8 years in the minors. Talk about TWTW. Before the series got going, no surprise as we started to begin Seattle. Mike Clevenger went on the 15-day injured list with right bicep inflammation. The Sox announced Friday. The right-hander, last Wednesday's outing against the Dodgers in the fifth inning, he left that with right bicep soreness. It's erring on the side of caution, Grifol said. We're not going to rush him into anything. We're going to make sure that everything is going in the right direction before we send him out there. Everything we've gotten back has been better news than any of us have anticipated. When you see a guy go down like that, everything we've got back has been okay. We'll see how he progresses. If you have any other questions, ask Jerry. No, not that last part. He doesn't want you to ask Jerry about pitching stuff. They're going to see how he progresses, and we'll see what happens. But again, no scheduled starter for Monday, which would be the normal Clevenger spot. Sox recalled Jesse Schultens from AAA Charlotte. He pitched a scoreless inning Friday and Saturday. So White Sox were living by the home run to start the series in Seattle, and Zach Remillard did the unthinkable in Game 2 on Saturday. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. The White Sox face off against the Rangers on Monday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. So how did things start this past series? On Friday, that was that Apple TV game. Sox fell to the Mariners 3-2. Michael Kopech and Tanner Banks worked in and out of jams to keep the game close. But after an extra inning loss to the Dodgers on Thursday, when the Sox hit 4 solo home runs, the only scoring for the White Sox in Game 1 of this Seattle series came via solo home runs by Gavin Sheets and the $75 million man, Andrew Benintendi. Here's what Grifol said about that. Hey, we have 6 home runs in the last 2 days solo. I like the fact that we're hitting home runs. Now we've got to find ways to put up crooked numbers. We do that, we'll be in good shape with the pitching we've got. Well, Kopech was on the mound on Friday. This was his line: 4 1/3, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 6 walks, 4 strikeouts. His ERA just a bit under 4, 3.92. He threw 102 pitches. Banks came in immediately in relief. 2 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned run, 0 walks, 4 strikeouts. We worked out of some sticky situations, but ultimately I knew what was needed of me and I didn't execute it, Kopech said. I needed to go long, and I did about as poor of a job of that as I can. 6 walks, giving away free passes, kept myself in high pitch counts every inning. I put us in a position where we needed a few more innings, and I couldn't do that. It was a rough day, and that has been a problem of Michael Kopech. Dylan Cease actually as well this year. A lot of pitches, a lot of 2-2 counts, 3-2 counts, fouling off, can't put guys away. The walks pile up, and so do the pitches. I mean, that's unacceptable to go less than 5 innings right now from a guy like Michael Kopech. I'm not expecting 7. I'm really not. My expectations are so low with the amount of innings that starters go these days. But 6, can you give me 6 right now? He was right on with his quote, though. That was a good personal assessment. How about Andrew Benintendi? That $75 million man finally went deep. His first home run of the season came in the top of the 6th inning, which ended the longest homerless streak of his career at 245 at-bats in 64 games. It's definitely nice to see him hit a homer, Grifol said, but there's a reason he hasn't hit homers. I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's nice to see him hit one. You want him to get that one out of the way so he can get everybody off his back. And if you have a problem, go to Jerry. No, again, he did not say that time. Sox offense, 2 runs, 5 hits. Berger and Vaughn struck out 3 times. Luis Robert Jr. struck out 4 times to start off the series. Sox were 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. Again, productive at-bats, manufacturing runs. They just weren't doing it. It's great to see those solo home runs, but have a complete offense. White Sox as a team struck out 16 times without drawing a walk. Let's go to Saturday. Saturday, another close one, but Sox came on top 4-3. That was the Zach Remillard game. Where were you when it happened? Remillard called up, of course, when Moncada went on the IL last week. Had a debut to remember, going 3 for 3 with a walk and 2 RBIs while leading the Chicago White Sox to a 4-3 victory against the Seattle Mariners in 11 innings. He tied the game with an RBI single in the 9th and put the Sox ahead with a 2-out hit in the 11th. I don't think you can fully put into words, Remillard said, where this journey started, and what you dream of is exactly what happened today. I can't imagine fighting your way to the big leagues, 8 years in the minors. You finally get called up. You get put in because of a weird situation with TA being removed, and you have that kind of production. Manager Pedro Grifol called it the best win of the year for us. This was a resilient, gutsy win. He said he's a winner. He's a baseball player. I saw it all spring, Grifol said of Remillard, and he didn't disappoint today. There's something to be said about somebody who has played baseball as long as he has and has been in the minor leagues for a while and gets an opportunity to do this. Just that desire, that will, that heart to be a big leaguer, the makeup like that will take you a long way. And I think Grifol's onto something like that. I joke around by saying TWTW. Hawk Harrelson used to say that as well. The will to win. And it's kind of corny, but I think there's some truth to it. He used to always talk about Mark Burley, this guy that was drafted really late by the Chicago White Sox, a guy that didn't have amazing stuff, wasn't the guy that was probably too cool for school, knew he was going to be going right to the big leagues. He had a fight. He absolutely had a fight. He couldn't let up. And he had just some amazing success for the White Sox and even beyond. When he left the White Sox, he was still, putting up some good numbers, made an all-star team, I think, for the Toronto Blue Jays. So who knows what's going to happen with a guy like Remillard, but stuff that we've been seeing with Jake Berger, who's had to just fight through injuries and other personal stuff he's going through. And to see that kind of success with somebody that just, it wasn't handed to them, early in their career, financially or playing time, whatever that is, they had to work for it. A great story. After announcing last week that the thought of moving Tim Anderson out of the leadoff spot hadn't even crossed his mind, Grifol dropped TA to the number 2 spot on Saturday, hitting Andrew Benintendi first. Leading off, you want to get on base and create havoc, Benintendi said. It was a good day, and it was for Benintendi. Went 4 for 5 with a walk, did not strike out. TA was 0 for 1 and was removed in the 4th due to right shoulder soreness. That opened things up for Remillard, and he did not disappoint. Probably one of the better debuts I've ever seen, if not the best, Benintendi said. Coming in mid-game and making an impact in every single at-bat. Great job by him. Sox offense, 4 runs, 12 hits. Berger with another 2 strikeouts. Sox had 10 as a team, but also 5 walks. Eloy Jimenez hit a solo home run in the 2nd, which put the runs scoring streak via the solo home run at 7. Sox were 3 for 18 with runners in scoring position. Giolito's line, 5 innings, 8 hits, 2 earned runs. 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, gave up a home run. It was the first batter of the game, first pitch of the game by Crawford. Giolito's ERA still 3.54. I'm assuming it's not what he wanted, and he should expect more from himself. But he did not let things completely unravel after that first batter home run. The bullpen, along with Remillard, was really the story on Saturday. It was a taxed bullpen, but extremely effective bullpen. You had Santos, Middleton, Bummer, Schultens, covered 6 innings in game 2, did not issue a hit or run, allowed 2 walks and struck out 8. Awesome performance. This is what Grifol said. These guys are not only picking up innings, they're picking up leveraged innings. We don't play non-leveraged games. I'm proud of them. I'm impressed by them. They're just part of something special. No rest for the weary for our Chicago White Sox. They host one of the best teams in all of baseball beginning on Monday night on the South Side. More on that in a moment. So Sox Rangers, it's going to be a warm one this week in Chicago at 35th and Shields. Temps in the 80s. That usually means that the ball will fly out of the ballpark, especially if there's a little bit of wind. Hopefully that's the case for our White Sox, not just for the Rangers. Look, the Chicago White Sox, they've got this 3 with the Rangers. Then there's an off day, and then they welcome Boston. Which Boston's not playing horrible baseball. They're around 500, but they're completely in the cellar because of the way the AL East is shaping up. The Sox are 11 games under 500. I mean, that's their record. They are what they are, 11 games under. I mean, here's we sit in almost get into late June. I mean, June 19th. I mean, that's who they are. The 5.5 games back in the AL Central is such a mirage. You got to announce it and you got to say it. And I'm almost saying it as an I can't believe this. They're 11 games under and they're only 5.5 out. Nobody is willing to take a hold of this AL Central. So the Texas Rangers and Bruce Bochy, the man, I think that got away. I mean, if the rumors are true, if Tony La Russa wasn't interested in coming back to manage anymore, it sounded like Bruce Bochy was the guy that Jerry Reinsdorf wanted. I'm not going to ask him, and I don't even know if you can ask him if he even would answer that question, let alone lineups. But Bruce Bochy, he might have been dealing with some health problems, maybe left the San Francisco Giants. It sounded like he was still interested to get back into baseball. His resume speaks for itself, and the Sox didn't decide to go with a veteran manager this time around. They wanted to go with somebody that I think Hahn handpicked, some with more of an analytical mind, maybe more balanced approach. I don't know. I'm not seeing it from Pedro Grifol. He looks kind of like deer in headlights, just scrambling and saying kind of all the wrong things right now. But I think he's frustrated. I think his back is up against the wall. And some of his comments are just reactionary. It's like you ever get in an argument with somebody, family, friends, coworker, boss, subordinate, whatever it may be, and you're trying to keep a cooler head, you're trying to be professional, but you keep getting asked the same things, almost questioning your leadership maybe, and you just blurt something out. And I think when Grifol says, go ask Jerry. I mean, that is such a goofy reply. You know that Jerry's not going to be fielding any questions from anybody anytime soon. When does he ever have a town hall like that? Let alone in the clubhouse, letting the beat writers ask him questions, or fans, even at a fan convention. He's nowhere to be found. So I think Grifol's getting a little frustrated. And boy, the Texas Rangers come into town with one of the best records in all of baseball. There has not been a starter announced for the White Sox as I record here Sunday night. That might change. It's typically Mike Clevenger's spot. Jesse Schultens pitched a few innings in back-to-back appearances in the Seattle series. So maybe it's an opener, then a bullpen game. Lopez was the only arm used on Sunday, and Again, my apologies to folks listening to this podcast way back in the spring. I was thinking, you know what? Reynaldo Lopez could be a closer for the White Sox. He's got the velocity. He's got the stuff. He wants to do it. If you give him that ninth inning as we were waiting for Liam Hendricks to be cleared to play, give that to him. He doesn't have any experience, but why not? Why? And he has shown flashes. He absolutely has. But then he reverts to like vintage Lopez, where he just doesn't. He forgets to pitch. He just wants to throw, and it's right down Main Street. And in bad situations, nothing on it, just straight fastball, and he gets absolutely mashed, as he should. So my apologies. That I'm sorry if you've picked Lopez on your fantasy teams, or if you were telling other people like I think Lopez is the guy. This nut job on Locked On, Nick Morawski's talking up Reynaldo Lopez. I'm sorry. He looks out of sorts, and that's putting it mildly. So we'll see if he can get it together. But I've got more faith in guys like Middleton and even Kelly, and Santos looked really good this past weekend in Seattle. So Texas has got a top 3 offensive team in all of baseball, top 3 in all of baseball, top 10 on the road offensively, and a top 10 team when it comes to pitching. It is going to be a tough task for our Chicago White Sox. Folks, thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And any questions and comments you have, send them into lockedonsox@gmail.com. We've got an off day coming up this week, so maybe it'll be a good time for another mailbag episode. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. Hey, everydayers, you know who you are, and I appreciate it. On the next episode, I will hopefully be celebrating a White Sox winner. Appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.